All right, welcome back, everybody, for a new episode of Chasing Ghosts. This is the video series where I talk about those hard to find, those impossible to find comics, those things you have to do some legwork, some research, and even get lucky to find because they're just not easy to track down. These are not books you're going to find at any LCS that you go to. These, like I said, are some really tough books. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Check out the the memberships to see if you're interested in hitting that join button. And thanks for bearing with me these last couple of weeks as I've missed doing my regularly scheduled programming, and I'm trying to get back on this horse and keep things rolling forward. So here we're back with another Chasing Ghosts. And if you want to see what really hard to find books I have to talk about this week, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro and I will be right back. All right, so this week I decided to start off with a little bit of a theme. Not like Star Wars, not like any one particular title. This is actually going to be artist focused here at the start. Back maybe almost a decade ago now, there were a number of pretty high ratio variants, all done by I almost kind of want to say infamous artist Milo Manara. I don't know if I'm saying his name completely properly, but the Italian artist Milo Manara, and it all kind of stems from that Spider Woman cover. And you guys know the one with the impossible posture. We're not doing that one this week. We're going to save that for another time. But we do have a number of other variants he did write before then that we're going to take a look at first. And we are going to start it off with this one, this Uncanny Avengers issue 2. Pretty cool Scarlet Witch cover. He has a very unique style, and his art is pretty recognizable, at least to me. There's just something about it with the the painterly quality and everything that it just kind of stands out, and you can kind of tell a Manara mostly. At least I think I can. But with that said, this one was a pretty high ratio. This was a 1 in 100 from January of 2013. So, like I said, we're almost a decade out from when this book came out. And even at a 1 in 100, there were plenty of this book to printed that month. So if we look at the estimated print run, it was over 114,000, which is going to give our 1 in 100 potentially about 1,100 or so copies. Remember, these are estimated numbers. I know I got to say it every week, but I'll make sure everybody understands these are estimated numbers based off of the best information that we have. So I get the estimated print run from Comicron. We get the ratio when you do that basic math, and this is a guesstimate. We'll even call it a guesstimate at this point of how many copies could be out there. There is no real concrete way to find out this information, and it's just the best of what we got. So we're going to roll with what we have and take a look at what's actually in the CGC census right now, which is all of 108 copies. Not a tiny number, but at the same time, not a huge number either, considering there's over 1,100 potential copies of this. So it's one in every 10 have gotten graded. 65 9/8s, 27 9/6s, and then a few others rounding out that number for this 1 in 100 Milo Manara cover. Now, this thing sells, or at least the last time it sold back in August with 22 bids raw. It ended up at $156. So decently over ratio for this book, even still. It's not one that is easily found, as I said. Despite the estimated print run, that doesn't mean that's how many copies are definitely out there. Could be more, it could be less. We don't know. All I can tell you is that's the only copy that's sold. But if you did want to go shopping for one of these, you do have some options. I only grabbed a few examples, and you can see they're listed for $370 for a raw, $1,200 for a 9/8, $1,175 for a 9/8, 11 watchers on that. So there's people keeping an eye on this book, but $1,200 for a 9/8 and almost $400 raw is no small price for this book. And these aren't even all the copies. These are just the examples I found. There's a couple more that you can see out there now if you wanted to go looking for this book. But it's definitely not cheap because, as I said, all of these Manara covers have a history, and there are people who've looked for these, so the prices are not going to be that low. But moving on, I believe the rest of these might be 1 in 50s for this little stretch. But the next one we're going to look at is Fearless Defenders issue 1. So it's the first issue of Fearless Defenders. And this is, again, Milo Manara, February 2013. So the next month, this was a 1 in 50 with an estimated print run of about half of the last book. So the ratio is about the same when you consider this is a 1 in 50, which is half of 1 in 100. So about 53,000 or so estimated on the full print run. So maybe just over 1,000 on this particular variant. Not too bad. Does that math work? Yeah, I guess it works out. That said, what's in the census? In the census, we do have 70 copies of this particular one with a decent 49 9/8, 13 9/6s, and then it looks like 8 9/4s. And that's everybody in the CGC census for this one. And this one is also has sold for a decent amount, more than double ratio at about $120 there, with 23 bids at auction for a raw. Surprised to see so many raw copies out there, and these things going at auction for all things. You know how I normally say, don't you can get a discount or a bargain at auction. I guess there are still people with their eyes on these books because these auctions are still fetching a decent price. Granted, if you looked at that last one, the auction ended at 156, where the asking prices are much higher in that like 370 range. Let's see where this one is. So it's ending at 117.50, but the asking prices are a little bit higher, but these are all graded copies. These are the only 3 copies I can find of this particular book, but there are 3. 9/8 looking for 550. It looks like a 9/6 asking 500, and then a 9/4 looking for about $150. So at $117 raw, that kind of fits close to this kind of range here. That kind of makes sense. But I don't know about that. Uncanny Avengers, that raw was much lower than the ask. So we'll see how the rest of these fare. Our next one is going to be Savage Wolverine #2. So it looks like, I think that's Shauna, this she-devil, if I'm not mistaken, hanging out with Kazar down in the Savage Land. That's what I think this cover is, and it's a pretty cool cover, and definitely one that has fans. This is also from February 2013, and it's also a 1 in 50. Again, same artist. We're going to do like half a dozen of these, I think. Print run is a little bit higher than the last book at about 58,000, so the incentive is about 1,100 plus, potentially, for this one. Census also has a decent amount with 82 total copies in the census, and there is a 9.9 of this book. There is a 9.9, as well as 75 9/8s. And then there's just a few others rounding that out, but 75 9/8s is a lot. That's like almost every copy graded out of the 82 is a 9.8 or that 199, which is pretty impressive. It's usually not the case for all of them to come out that high grade. But sold copies. This sold raw back in August for $400. 400 big ones for this one. So as you can see, it still has its fans, and it is not cheap. That was a buy it now purchase. And if you wanted to go buy one, there are just 2 out there that I could find. One's asking $700, and then there's a lot that has another issue of Savage Wolverine in it that is an auction that was starting at $355, but the buy it now price was $465. So still very, very expensive for this book raw, and pretty close. Had I not caught this a lot, this would have been a single copy, and we might have been calling this one a ghost. But at the time of me doing my research, there were 2. You know where this one's going to end up. That said, we are going to move on to the next Manara cover, which is this Guardians of the Galaxy cover. And this one I have seen. I have seen this at a couple of places. And the reason why I've seen this one is because this was a heavily printed book, this Guardians of the Galaxy one from March of 2013. Despite it being a 1 in 50 incentive, there was a decent amount of copies of this book. 211,000 copies printed for this particular book. It was the #1 book of that month of March of 2013. So 211 is not that crazy considering, like I said, that was the #1 book for that time. And that would make our 1 in 50 a healthy 4,200 potential copies. That's a lot of copies. Definitely a lot of copies, potentially. Again, all estimated numbers. Don't know for certain how many are out there, but like I said, I have seen this one a few times. So this one may not be as expensive as those last few. Solid 196 copies into CGC census with 127 9/8s, 44 9/6s, and then a few others. You can zoom in, dig out the details here if you want to go digging in further. But copies of this thing sell, like I said, a little bit cheaper than the last ones. These are more ratio and even a little bit lower. We got copies selling for $59, $57, $30 raw. So right around ratio for this book, which is a stark difference between the $400 for that last one raw. Now, asking prices, however, are a little bit higher, surprisingly. There are more copies than what I have here, but a lot of the copies are right around that $100 mark. We're looking at 90 to 120 to 150, starting bid at 110 on that one. So right around that 90 to 120 bucks, that $100 range is kind of where this is at raw. So it's looking for double ratio, despite the fact that there are potentially a healthy number of copies. And like I said, there's more than the three I listed here. Those are just ballpark examples. And like I said, I have seen this on at a couple of places. So this is one I have seen at an LCS or two. That said, we're going to keep rolling to our next Manara cover. And this is one that doesn't get talked about a lot. This is Uncanny Avengers number 8. It's not like a number 1 or early issue in like the top 3. This is issue 8. And it's a Wasp cover. Like, not a lot of people go hunting for Wasp covers, but this is an interesting one as well. This one's from May of 2013. So we're moving on through the year 2013 here. And this was also a 1 in 50. Maybe I should have waited to do this next year. We could have done it as a 10-year anniversary, but hey, we're doing it now. Decent amount of copies still on Uncanny Avengers. 75,000 plus on the estimated full print run. So that's going to make our incentive a little over 1,500 copies potentially, which again is on the higher side for the books we've been looking at so far. In the census, however, there aren't as many, with only 74 copies, with 42 9/8s, 23 9/6s, and then a few others. And this book, as far as what actually sells, it still sells for a decent amount. $100 raw. So double ratio is what this has sold for. And this was way back in July, and that was the only sale that I could find for this book. But if you wanted to go shopping for one, you do got a few options, because I was able to find 4. Granted, raw copy asking $100, kind of in that same range. And then there's a few graded copies with a 190 for 9.4, and then a couple of 9.6s asking $250 to $300 on those 9.6s. So again, not a cheap book. These aren't bargain books. These are pretty expensive, these Manara covers, because, as I said, they had there's some time to shine, and people still remember them, and people are still looking for these. We're almost through them. I only got like 1 or 2 left. Our next one is going to be a pretty awesome Storm cover. This is on XMen number 1. So yeah, it's an XMen number 1. So you might guess there's probably going to be a decent number of these. Though I do like this Storm cover. It's pretty cool. This is also from May of 2013. It's also a 1 in 50. So you can see similar theme repeating itself here. And with it being an XMen number 1, it was pretty high, the print run. So 177,000 plus copies on the estimated run, which would give our incentive a little over 3,500. So again, another healthy print run on this one. So not surprised to see. Well, actually, I'm a little surprised to see that there are only 87 in the CGC census for this one. This one has 52 9/8s, 29 6s, and then a few others. I would have expected this to be closer to that 200 range that we saw the other high printed books. But hey, I guess not as many people found this book or wanted to sub this Storm cover, but I kind of dig it. That said, copies sold on this one, not too bad. 6288 with 7 bids at auction for a raw. So a little over ratio there. And then a 9.8 was only $169. That's not too bad. Granted, there are a lot of copies, so I guess that's why the price is a little bit softer, but still not awful for a 1 in 50 when you think about it. That said, there are plenty of copies. If you want to go buy one, you got plenty of options. These are just a few examples. There's more than these 4, but anywhere from $90 to $225 raw are the asks. And then 9.6 asking about $180. And another raw asking $175. So still some really healthy asking prices on this book, despite the fact that there are probably a good number of copies out there. But there's one for 90 if you're curious and interested. That said, our last one is probably one of the, again, more famous Manara covers, one of the more popular ones. And this is that Uncanny X-Force, because it's Psylocke. Everybody loves Psylocke, right? I mean, I know I love Psylocke. And this is also a 1 in 50 from May of 2013. So this one, doesn't have as high a print run as the rest. This one is only about 45,000 on the estimated run, and that would make our incentive just over 900 copies. So this is our first book that has an estimated incentive that's under 1,000 copies. And this one does get a decent amount, subbed. So 96 in the CGC census with 55 9/8, 28 9/6s, and a few others. And this one sells. There's some sales going on for this particular book. Granted, what do we got here? We got a best offer 9/8 on $800. We have another 9/8 that's sold for about $600 with 19 bids. We had a 9/4 signed by Manara that sold for $250 with one bid. And then we had a raw that ended up going for $310 with 29 bids. So a lot of action on that book, and that was back in August. So apart from the one CGCSS book, that 9.8 that sold for $600 and that raw that sold for $310, both of those had a decent number of bids. A lot of people bidding in on that book. So like I said, this is a known book. This is the book that some people are looking for. It's on some people's watch lists. So you could have some competition if you want to go searching for one for yourself. That said, even with all of these sales, because like I said, this book sells, there aren't that many listed. This one in particular, I could only find one listed right now, and it was $1,000 for a CGC 9.8 with 15 watchers. So right now, that's the ask. Last one might have ended up at $600 at auction at the beginning of September. Now we're in October, and right now the October price is $1,000. So maybe you can make an offer and get it. But there we go with that Psylocke. And oh, I was mistaken. This is not our last Manara. I do have one more. I do have one more Manara, and this is another one. This is an oddball one. I don't think a lot of people catch this one. This Captain Marvel. This is Avengers: The Enemy Within. This is an oddball one shot from back then. So this is one you don't see all that often. This is still a 1 in 50, and this was from June of 2013. So this was supposed to come out a little bit sooner, I think, and I think this book got delayed. But June of 2013 is when I found that this came out. Print run was only about 34,000 copies, so the incentive looks like it's only about 686 copies for this one. So this is definitely our lowest of the bunch so far. And in the census, there were only 47 with 19.98, 17.96s, 11.94s for that 47 total. This book also has actually sold. There are a few sales on this one, all graded. 9.6, 20 bids got it to over $200. 9.8, 33 bids got it over $338. Got it for $338. And then there was a buy it now for $500 on September 4th. So this book is sold like decent prices too. And if you want to go shopping, despite this having the lowest print run potentially of our group, there are still 4 copies out there. So much like a few of these, there are options. For whatever reason, there are options. So this is a book that moves. This is a book that changes hands a lot. And here we're looking at 9/6s asking for $285 to $500, a raw asking $290, and then a 9/4 looking for a $230. So still not cheap for any of these, realistically. All ratio plus, like there are no real discounts. I mean, there might have been 1 or 2 discounts along the way, but for the most part, these all sell pretty well. So if you can find any of these, you've done pretty well if you can get it for a decent price. But that said, they're not that easy to find. But there are copies out there if you want to go shopping online. That said, that is the little stretch of Manara. That's part 1. I got another part with some more Manara covers, including that Spider-Woman. We'll get to that maybe in a couple of weeks. So we'll take a little break from Milo Manara, and we're going to do something a little different. We're going to wrap this up, but with a different theme. We're going to shift gears and go to another. I'm going to go to a title that has some really, really tough books to find, because this is a title that doesn't have a high print run, and I'm sure a lot of people don't even know what the heck it is. I don't have many copies of this. I never really read this series, but I'm talking about Elephantmen out of Image, and there are a few variants that are really, really tough to find. This is what is this, issue 20 for Elephantmen, and this is what the regular cover looks like. And the reason why I'm showing you the regular cover is for this particular issue, the incentive is just a black and white version. So here we go. Our black and white version, which is done by Ladron, if I'm saying his name right, a 1 in 25 from June of 2009. So a 1 in 25 on an Elephantmen book. That's issue 20. So it's not like first issue, early issues. Issue 20 of this series, they decided to do some incentives. And this 1 in 25 is just a black and white. Now, print run. Reported print run is down around 3,800 copies. So if we do that math, the incentive potentially has as few as 153 copies. That's how little we're talking about for these books, these Elephantmen. Because again, not a heavily printed book. Not a lot of people buying this title. In fact, as we go along, this didn't even make the top 300 or so. It's not even on Comicron, some of these later issues we're going to get to. But that said, this particular one, this is our estimates, maybe 150 or so copies. And none of them are graded. So I found none of this particular incentive in the CGC census. And as you might have guessed, none have sold. And if you want to go shopping for one, yeah, there's no copies out there. So this one is going to be a tough one. If you want to go find this Elephantmen, this Ladron cover, black and white, good luck, because you're going to have a tough go of it. Again, it's going to stick with Elephantmen for a little while here. Some interesting covers and some low print runs. This is another Ladron. This was issue 22. So 2 issues later, they decided to do another 25. And Ladron, I believe, was the regular interior artist. So we got to do some of the variants as well. This, I believe, is a different cover than the regular cover. So unlike the last, which was a black and white version of the regular, this is actually new cover art in October of 2009. But the print run is still pretty darn low at about 3,400 copies. So our incentive is down under 140 potential copies. So 139 is my estimate based off of these numbers. Not a lot at all. And just like the last book, nobody graded this thing. There's not a single copy in the CGC census for this particular variant. And you're probably not surprised that I'm going to continue to say that none have sold recently, and there's none available right now either. So Elephantmen number 20 and 22, 1 in 25s. Good luck. Good luck. Godspeed. Now, this next one, it might seem more interesting to some of you, because now we're going to get to a couple of these variants that actually have artists that, I'm not saying that you guys don't know Ladron. I don't really remember much of Ladron, but I'm pretty sure most of us do know Greg Capullo. And Greg Capullo did this variant here on issue, what are we on, 23. So the next issue in the run also had a 1 in 25 from December of 2009. So pretty cool Capullo cover, right? But print run, pretty darn low. Pretty darn low. Right around the same as the last one. And this one, however, actually has a copy in the census. There is 2. There are 2, I should say. Not is. There are 2. There's one 9.8 and one 9.0. That's it. 2 in the census. And with that, we move on to see, what does this thing sell for? Who knows? None have sold in the last couple of months. And if you want to go buy one, well, as you might guess, yeah, good luck. There's none out there either. So you can't buy this one either. Keep looking. Maybe you get lucky. But this is another one of those really, really tough books. Moving on to the next bit here. We got another Elephantmen. This one is going to be a J. Scott Campbell cover. This one is a little bit lower ratio. This is from June 2011. This is for issue 32. So we jump ahead a little bit as far as number wise, and we get a 1 in 15. All right, a little bit more palatable. A little bit more palatable on this particular issue. However, looking at the Comicron numbers at issue 32, it didn't make the list, which would lead me to believe it had to be less than the last book on the list, which is why I have it at under 926 copies, because that was the lowest number on the list, was 926. It was like the 310th issue, as far as the sales go. So under 926, which would give our incentive, even at a 1 in 15, under 61 copies. Again, these are guesses. These are estimates. And there's not even a print run for me to actually do a definitive number on. All I can tell you is our best guess for this Campbell cover for issue 32, which is kind of cool. You got a zebra dude, you got the elephant, and a couple of sexy ladies on there. It looks like an alligator or something in the back. That's it. There are copies in the census of this one as well. Well, copies is a bit of a stretch. There's 1 copy. one copy in the census, and it is a 9.6. So not a 9.8, it is a 9.6, the sole copy on the CGC census. But there is a sale. We do have a sale, so I can tell you how much somebody paid for one of these 1 in 15s, and they paid $160. Buy it now for this 1 in 15 back in July, so it's a while ago. And granted, there's one sale, but if you want to go shopping for one, you're out of luck because there are no copies, unfortunately. So, just like the last, these Elephantmen books are not easy to find, these variants. But go ahead, dig, look, maybe you get lucky. I got one more. We're going to jump ahead again. So this was issue 32. We're going to jump ahead to issue 50. This title like ran into like the 80s, so there's still plenty more after this, but this is where I'm going to stop what I'm doing here. So this is issue 50. You can see pretty cool Frank Quietly cover. A lot of image artists lending a hand here, jumping in on these Elephantmen covers and giving some variants, which are pretty cool. But this is the regular cover for issue 50 for the 64-page like supersized book. As you might guess, it's a black and white. That's what the incentive is going to be. And this is once again a 1 in 15, like the last Campbell cover. This is July of 2013 at this point. I don't know if that date's right. I might have used the wrong date, or it could be right. No, that seems right. Yeah, July 2013. So there could have been, there were some gaps in the printing here for Elephantmen, but Frank Quietly did this particular issue, and again, did not hit the Comic-Con numbers. So it's got to be somewhere under 3,100, 3,200 potential copies. Because again, that was the lowest printed for that particular month. And the incentive is somewhere under 130, potentially. Again, best guess estimates based on the information that's not even there for this book. So just ballparking these things. So don't take this as scripture. Don't take this as set in stone. Just guessing at what potentially could be for this book. And there is one in the census for this, and it is a 9.8 for this sketch cover. So there is one 9.8 out there. And kudos to whoever has that book. But much like the last couple, no copies have sold recently, nor are there any copies available for these Elephantmen. So that's what I got for you this week. And we have a tale of two groups, right? We have some high ratio Milo Manara covers, which are pretty darn expensive, but there are copies available. And most of those ended up on our hard to find list here, our hard to find category. So all 7 of these Manara covers end up being hard to find. Well, not all 7 of them, because there was the one. There was the one, and that was the Psylocke, the Uncanny X-Force, which ended up here with only one copy available, and then all these Elephantmen had no copies available. So we got to, at least for this week, I feel comfortable calling these particular issues ghosts. So we got another 6. That's a healthy number of ghosts again this week, though 5 of them are Elephantmen books, and then 1 is that Uncanny X-Force Manara cover for Uncanny X-Force 5, I think was the number. But that's what we got for this week. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for stopping by and checking this out. I do appreciate you all. That's my list. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things here and doing like all my regular shows once again. Did Hidden Gems for yesterday, and then I'm doing Chasing Ghosts. For Tuesday, and then we got the tax show coming on Wednesday. We'll be doing that live. We're going to be talking about some pre-code horror. We're actually going to go back to comics for the tier list. So we're going to be tier listing some pre-code horror covers because it is October. So we're going to do a little bit of horror, Halloween type theme things, I think, throughout the month as we go through on the tax show on Wednesdays. So come join and have some fun there in the live chat. It's always a good time. And then I'll be back with Dollar Bin Digging on Thursday. Check out the boys doing Mail Call Madness on Fridays. Saturday Night Special live show on Saturdays. Go join the chat. Check out what the boys are doing. Absolute Geek Podcast as well. It's on both our channels. And then Sunday, we have the Tales from the Dark Side Star Wars show. I may not make Star Wars this particular week, but our buddy Jedi Johnson it should be back to help at least fill my seat for the week and see if we can convince him to come stop by more often again, because hey, we're all getting busy, we're all dealing with a bunch of stuff, so things are shifting around here, and just doing the best that we can. And me in particular, trying to get back on this horse and getting the content back out for you guys. So I appreciate you all. Hopefully you like the content. Let me know again what you think in the comments section, and I will see you soon with some more content. All right, later.